Hey guys, this is Alex.
And this is Drew.
And today on the Two Man Comic Book Club podcast, we're taking a look at WandaVision episodes 1, 2, and 3 with a special guest, Mr. Nick Kinnett. Let's go. What's up, fellas?
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. We're very excited to have not just 2 men, but 4 men in the studio today.
Yes.
Nick and Torrance, thank you.
Some of you might have heard, if you've been listening for a while, Nick's jumped in for a few questions and guest appearances through the audio world, and we're actually glad to have him in here in the studio, aka my kitchen, for this exciting episode where we talk about the first bit of MCU we've had in quite a while.
Yeah.
Really exciting. Nick, thank you.
I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
It's going to be awesome. So, before we jump into that, we always like to take a bit and just shoot the stuff. What if I broke the cussing barrier there? Yeah. We've been talking about just when are we actually going to start these 2 Men After Dark episodes. I feel like there's going to be a Patreon behind that. You got to pay to hear the dark inner thoughts of the 2-man team.
Spoiler alert, mine's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So
Right. We'll get Holly on here.
my wife encourages me to cuss.
Yeah.
I can't. I'd rather say ploppers.
Sound like Katie. Yeah. Those are our cuss words.
So I'm gonna break the typical order just and say, hey Nick, what you been reading, yo?
Throwing him under the bus.
I knew you were going to ask me that question. Yeah. So, within the comic world,
I mean, it could be anything. Whatever.
Okay. Well, that's good because I haven't been reading very many comics. I used to read a lot more than I do now. What have I been reading lately? Actually, just picked up The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, nice.
And so right now I'm working my way through the Fellowship, and I'm going to do.
I've made it halfway through the Fellowship, and I couldn't because I'd already seen the movies. I actually got done rewatching the extended editions last weekend. But yeah, I was actually sitting there thinking, maybe I need to just finally read them for real. But the Fellowship book part seemed slow to me. Is it are you having that same issue?
Yeah. So I'm halfway through the Fellowship right now. I know for a fact I read The Two Towers, but I can't remember if I've read the entire trilogy. But the first half of the Fellowship is a lot of setup.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Yeah,
I'm probably 300 pages in, and spoiler alert: if you haven't seen these movies from 20 years ago or read these books from 80 years ago or whatever, I'm 300 pages in, and they're not to Rivendell yet.
Wow.
Nice.
So they're really taking their time.
But
do we know if there are graphic novel versions of those books?
I don't know.
oh, that'd be sweet.
That would be really cool. Tori, can you look that up? I'm just curious.
Looking it up.
Looking it up. I'm just curious if there are, like, somebody was like bold enough that, that's an undertaking.
That would be that because the books are lengthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, you could get away with some, like, show me, don't tell me, as comics do. But even so, that would be like a
I'd enjoy it.
compendium size.
Did you ever read The Hobbit?
Yeah.
Okay. I read The Hobbit like back in high school or something. But yeah, that's cool.
I haven't read either of those. I should probably learn how to read sooner than later.
Here's the thing. All right. So I know this is a comic book podcast. I know this is a reading.
It skews more and more just nerd topics lately.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, with comic flavor.
So I'm actually doing these audiobooks.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
And
Heck yeah.
It's totally fine.
but this recording was done in the 90s, and the narrator, it's one of those where he actually does voices for all the different characters.
I think I've
and it
come
is
across
like
that.
world class.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
super good.
For those that are listening that might be interested, where'd you get them?
I just found them in Audible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have zero experience with Audible. I know that it's extremely popular. Are there like a ton of different narrators and readers for the books in there? Like you can go through and pick who you want to read to you? Or does it kind of vary by book?
Not usually, but for something like The Lord of the Rings, there tend to be like a couple of different options. So there might be some really, really popular or like widespread, ubiquitous kind of titles where that's the case. Mm-hmm. But normally it's like this book, it was narrated by this person.
Right.
Period.
Who's the, which reminds me of Sandman, There's a guy that read
Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman. Yeah, that he did it. That one, I think that's pretty popular. I think a lot of people are pretty.
Yeah, that's a more of a drama realization of
Okay.
it, where
Okay.
you've got different actors for the different parts rather than one narrator.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard really good things about that. I think some of you might know I listen to Fat Man and Beyond, the Kevin Smith podcast, and Mark Bernardin, is how you say his last name. He's always talking about how incredible that is. I think they even sponsored it, so maybe there were times when he was paid to say that, but also I think in passing he's just raved about how awesome it is. I don't think you are.
Okay, at this point we can just stop and talk. Because I'm seeing I had it on manual focus when I was taking my album cover
Gotcha.
stuff.
Should we cut for a second and
Can you just
check
switch
make
it to
sure?
autofocus and we'll just see? What is this, 9 minutes?
Focus. AFC, correct?
Yeah, AFC.
There you
Weird.
go.
Okay, now we found you.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's a lot of Nick in there, so he'll be the primary shot.
Oh, shucks.
Are you on airplane mode? Because just whenever you looked at that, it started on tick, 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 tick.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm
It's
not.
fine. We're not doing anything right now.
Yeah, we ended up pausing.
All right, I am now.
It's fine. Okay, cool. I never heard it while we were actually talking about stuff. So
While we're stopped, when do we want to do the questions for him? Last chapter?
at the end.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that.
What was I just saying?
I have no idea.
Neil Gaiman,
Neil
Fat Man
Gaiman,
Beyond.
Okay.
Anyway, that's one that I've just been looking forward to listening to myself. What have you been reading, yo?
Kind of just like Nick, I haven't been reading as many comics. I was thinking last
You
night.
have no excuse.
Yeah, I have no excuse. About next episode that we've already recorded, how
Yeah.
I predicted what I would have been what I had read.
Yeah, we did predictions about what we will read in the next 2 weeks.
and I've done
You're failing
nothing to
miserably.
advance that narrative.
You got
So
a full week of comic reading ahead of
I
you.
need to finish We Are Robin. I need to finish The Watchmen compendium, and I need to solve world hunger.
Oh
between
yeah,
now
that was
and
just on top of that. You were
Yikes.
going to fix a pretty long-standing
So-
issue on
Better
a
get busy.
global scale.
So I've finished reading. Torrance mentioned 4 Past Midnight, the Stephen King short story collection. I finished The Langoliers, and I'm about to finish Secret Garden, or Secret Garden,
Yes.
Secret Window. I can't remember what. And I've been listening. You were talking about your Audible stuff. A project that me and Torrance are working on. I've been geeking out listening to a bunch of like sci-fi podcast things, like sci-fi fiction, and I've come across a few. And yesterday, I basically binge listened, or maybe 2 days ago, to a cool one called a cool podcast called We Fix Space Junk, and it's like in little 12 episode seasons, and I made it through the first 12 episodes, and it's really well done. It's like you had talked about how the Neil Gaiman thing is like a realization.
Cool.
Of it,
Kind of like
so-
an audio drama a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is.
What
So-
if you were to give like a 30-second synopsis on it?
They're somewhere in the future. I don't know how far. And basically, without giving away too much, a couple people are essentially mercenaries, but for repairs around space. So they'll like
Interesting.
They'll get a job and be like, your job is to go repair in or around Alpha Centauri, blah 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 blah. And then so they just go and they do that, but there's always more to it because.
Are there
like-
others trying to beat them to the repair?
In some cases, and also it's just really weird scenarios. And they're like 12, 15-minute episodes. So it's just like get in,
But
get out.
paced really well just to...
and
cool.
good voice acting. Some of the other things I've listened to recently, not so much.
Not as
but this, like, I'm able to suspend my disbelief, and I'm not constantly sitting there like, I wish they'd up the production value a little bit. It's good. So, like, if you like that sort of thing and have 12 minutes,
Right.
this is one of the few podcasts I actually listen to at normal speed. Because I'm like, yeah, it feels like a good thing. Normally, I'm listening to 1.5 or 1.8 speed.
Are you still using Google Podcasts?
I
You
actually
switched to Overcast yet?
I've listened to these on Overcast just because it's a lot easier just to make a new listening thread in there without tampering with my very meticulously curated thread playlist that I have on Google Podcasts. So
Right.
I'm
You're back
an
and
equal
forth.
opportunity
Yeah.
listener.
If you have never experimented on other podcast playing applications, there are some really good ones. I highly recommend you check out Overcast. It has this really cool smart speed that uses an algorithm to very tastefully
Algorithm.
an algorithm. That's been a reoccurring ostinato, if you will, within our show. It uses this really cool algorithm to cut out space in between words without making it feel like they're literally back to back to back to back to back to back.
Because
to
the
back.
Google Podcast Smart Silence or whatever it's called is not as like I find it more.
Yeah, it's distracting almost.
Distracting, yeah.
Right. This one is done extremely well. It's an award-winning podcast, like one podcast, or I think it might have won App of the Year on the Apple Store at one point. It's really good. I think there's a premium version that removes ads, but it's like $3 for a year. So, and anyway, like I'm
And I've
always
only
down
noticed
for
the ads are just like
little banners.
a little
Yeah.
banner at the bottom that's
But I'm
never
also
in
down
the
to
way.
support the guy that made this incredible app. So really cool. It's great. Like it speeds up the flow with still making it feel very conversational and not taking away creative intent, I feel. So really cool. It's called Overcast. You should check it out if you haven't tried other podcast apps yet.
Hey Alex,
Are you gonna ask me?
what you been reading, yo?
I have been reading comics,
good.
you
At least-
sinner.
At least there's one of us.
So because of WandaVision, and yes, you know, if you listen, you know we don't just jump right in. We'll get to the good stuff in a minute. I've been going through and reading more of the older 80s Wanda and the Vision comics just to get some backstory, especially a lot of the B characters that I think we're starting to see show up in the show.
Like the beekeeper at the end of I'm just kidding.
Tasty. I haven't seen a beekeeper yet.
Bee character.
Yeah,
B-E-E.
BEE character.
I get it.
Oh, I get it.
yeah.
But I was inspired to go back and actually start reading the House of M series. That is,
Which, if you're like me and thought it was about House of Magneto, it's not.
right.
All this
Well,
time.
That's not completely
House of-
void of
House
those
of
concepts.
Maximoff.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
assuming, yeah.
I'm not going to spoil everything. Something big happens, and I especially don't want to because it could be that a version or a variation or an inversion of this plot point happens inside the show. So I want to kind of wait and see, but I wanted to refresh myself on all the characters. So I got literally 3 pages into House of M #1, and Charles Xavier said something in a panel. I was like, dang it, now I have to go read Avengers Disassembled, this entire event. So last night I started on the Thor series. I think it's like Thor number 80 through 85 or something like that. That is the prequel to Avengers Disassembled, where the 2000s were kind of known as like the first decade of comics that really was like hammering like a hit event after hit event, because you get House of M, you get Civil War, you get Avengers Disassembled, you start moving into more galactic stuff as well that happens after all the Infinity series. Lots of just like huge events that have fallout that affect this major event here. So they seem to be playing off a lot of that, or at least doing something that could be setting up that event inside WandaVision. So I want to read it. So I think I have a list here. By the way, if you have Marvel Unlimited, I know a few of you have signed up since we started listening and telling you guys about it and all the great deals they've had recently. You can go to this website called Comic Book Herald, who coincidentally, they also have a podcast where they do My Marvelous Year, where they are literally going through and reading the hit points of every year of Marvel's existence. Really cool. They give you lists, but on this website, comicbookherald.com, they give you reading orders for characters you like or major events and all the tie-ins and everything, and it's very nicely laid out. And he goes through regularly and updates the lists based on what is now available on Marvel Unlimited, which at this point is like 39,000 issues. So looking at this, there's probably like, I don't know, 30 or 40 comics for me to read this and all the tie-ins, but I think it'll be worth it. I think there's like 20-ish in the House of M, maybe a little bit more, but there are some stuff that like kind of hits on the outer skirts of the story. It's like, this is fluff material that yes does relate, but also you're not going to lose any sleep if you didn't get those stories in. So I've been reading a lot of that. I also am almost up to date on the Magnificent Miss Marvel, which is Miss Marvel's most recent run. A lot of really cool stuff. They have like this is light spoilers, but not anything really plot related. She gets taken somewhere early on because this alien race thinks she's basically like their hero savior and the only one that can stop this apocalypse happening on their planet because she looks like this Kree battle suit thing. And then she finds that thing and it like grabs onto her and gives her like way enhanced powers. And then that goes well, but then when she comes back and that thing comes with her, things start getting a little weird. So I'd say I read like 20 comics this week. I had a good reading week.
Nice.
I feel like there was something else, but I can't remember what it was.
Did you happen to take care of world hunger this past weekend?
No, dude.
While I didn't.
You told me you were going to do that.
Okay.
Well, I was going to.
That's right.
Yikes.
But you didn't.
I had to go and speak up.
Yeah.
Hey, Torrance, what you
Yes.
been reading, yo?
I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, but have I talked about House of Leaves?
No.
It was given to me as a Christmas present by a friend of the show, DJ.
Oh, yeah.
What's up, DJ?
Hey, DJ.
It's a very convoluted book. It has footnotes and then footnotes to the footnotes.
Nice. One of those.
3 different appendices, and then it has 2 different narrators. So it's been a struggle to get into it, but
Sounds really dense.
it is very dense, but it is very good. Very, very good.
Cool.
I
Yeah.
can't really say anything about without giving anything away, but I would suggest looking up House of Leaves. It was a book that was passed around just word of mouth for years before somebody finally published it.
Oh, wow.
Very cool. Have you been reading any more of those graphic novels? I'm just curious.
I'm almost done with them.
Nice.
Wow. There are,
I've got some. I need to go and
you've been reading more than him.
dust. Everybody has. I need to go and dust those off so that maybe we can talk about them.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, maybe that's something that we cover.
The graphic novels he was talking about, the Dark Tower graphic
Yes.
novels.
Very cool. Well, I think now that we have done all of our reading, we're going to take a quick break and then jump right into WandaVision episode 1 because we got 3 episodes to cover today.
Yeah.
So we'll be right back. And we're back, and we're going to get right into episode 1 of WandaVision now. If you haven't seen these yet, here's your spoiler warning. We're going to rip these apart in all the good ways that we can. Also, if you have not seen, Drew mentioned in our quick break, the Marvel Legends, which are essentially these 7 or 8 minute little recaps of the characters that are featured in these shows. I think they're going to release them for all the Disney Plus shows. So as of now, there are 2 episodes for Wanda, 1 episode for Wanda and 1 episode for Vision, 2 episodes in total. And they literally just are kind of like a trailer
Yeah.
or a hype video for everything that's happened for those characters in the MCU thus far.
It gave me one of those. Actually, no, I won't say that. But I didn't watch it till after the 3rd episode, and I was like, man, I wish I'd realized that these were here. So if you haven't hit pause yet because you don't want to get spoiled, I recommend watch those. It's 14 minutes total between the 2 of them.
Right.
Then go watch the episodes and then come back because I'd forgotten a lot of that stuff, and it even kind of made me tear up a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh.
Definitely hits you in the feels. Those 2 characters have not been on screen a lot in the last 10 years, but have been in the screen in the right moments and have had some heavy, heavy minutes, all things considered, as far as like productivity of what those characters are doing. So really incredible storytelling going on. And then I think at this point I saw online that Paul Bettany, a.k.a. The Vision, is the only MCU character who has now been in the MCU for 3 different decades. Because we had him as Jarvis in Iron Man.
Okay.
And then, because of WandaVision, now he's in his 3rd decade of making MCU films.
Nice.
Well, you know what I mean? It's kind of a cheating way to get there, but he's there nonetheless.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about these so far? Let's start with episode 1 and we'll move forward just to not get ahead of ourselves because there's a lot to unpack. Easter eggs, speculation, theories, but just initial thoughts.
I mean, I like from a purely non-story based thing. I dig their attention to detail to try to make it feel like the period that it's actually coming from. That kind of bewitched, whatever type feel, and the music, the intro sequences, even like I can't remember if it was the first episode or the second episode, but I'm just going to speak in vagaries. Like whenever they jumped to the cartoon version of a thing that was going on, like it felt The only thing I was like, man, I almost wish it wasn't high definition.
Right.
I almost wish
Yeah.
we had that VHS.
I
type
do
of a
know
feel.
that it is not as high definition as it could be. Rodney Martinez, I know you're watching this right now and you just called me. Stop it. They actually did shoot with some of the older film cameras, but then the editors and the production team went in and actually
okay.
mastered it for Dolby Vision.
So I understand it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm watching this on a high def TV. I would probably be upset in retrospect. Hey, we got a visitor.
Yeah.
Right.
Side of your mouth. Nasty thing.
Let's just pull you off of there for a second.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you in my lap.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But yeah.
Like how you have to decide as a creative, the creative intent behind it, how far down the rabbit hole of old production techniques do you want to go?
I'm not upset.
Right.
I just was like, part of me was like, it would have been just a little bit more authentic. But I still, if it had happened, I might have been like, man, why isn't this high def? Because I can't imagine what it would actually be like. But I dug that. And I know we're only talking about the first episode, but the way that things change, even going into the third episode, like in the themes and everything, I was just like, man, nice job.
Yeah,
so,
and they
I'll just
actually,
leave it at
and
that.
we'll get into it more specifics in a second after we just get some initial thoughts. But they actually use those eras and the decades and the genre changes as a device to move time and also kind of give us some context of what's actually happening. So it's very brilliantly done. It's sort of meta in that way, and that it's not just all right, what if Wanda and Vision lived in the 50s, and now what if they were in the 60s and now the 70s, and they'll go on to the subsequent decades and genres of television. So really cool. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I love how well they're riffing off of these very familiar sitcom.
Oh yeah, they've done their
tropes.
research.
For sure. But they're doing it in a very Marvel kind of way where they're honoring it, they're poking fun at it, and they're also making it their own.
Right.
You know? And I don't know, as we get into some of the more spoilery, theory-y stuff, I think it's also kind of a plot device.
For sure.
And I just love these characters.
Oh, yeah.
And glad we're getting more time with them.
Yeah. Tori, you have any initial thoughts on the first 3 episodes?
What reminded me of was a Tim and Eric sketch.
Okay.
And just like the taking a familiar concept or format,
Right.
and then making it weird. Not that the whole thing is like a Tim and Eric sketch, but there's moments where, like when the boss is choking, and like all of a sudden it's like, what's happening here?
Yeah. There's a little bit of world breaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Right.
Stop it.
Made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's like,
Exactly.
Yeah, really cool. I think starting off, let's do I'm going to try to remember just some of the Easter eggs that they do. I'm going to actually pull up a list myself just so I'm not. The tricky thing about this is that they're also short and compact, that they feel at this point still like a short movie or a short film.
Correct.
I've actually had seen some people on comic book Twitter just kind of complaining about they're not used to this format, I guess. I mean, and understandably so. We're used to these epic MCU films that are 2 hours plus long, and then we get 29 minutes and 36 minutes here, and I think the other one was just under 30 minutes. So,
and of a 36-minute episode, the credits are like 7 minutes long.
I know, yeah, a ton of it, and then even they're fun, but also like the in-scene commercials that they do that are kind of period accurate.
and it actually felt like you're used to this long story that is like the real world, but we're like having obvious breaks, even if they don't cut to a commercial break. Sometimes they have those scene breaks
Right.
where it's just like fade to black, and you're just like, oh man, this is so TV. This is so vintage TV.
Yeah, it's incredible. There are some people that are kind of complaining, but also just like going whatever, because Marvel has basically, I think justifiably so. I mean, like they've earned our trust, right? Like they've told this epic story over a decade plus now, and they've just kind of have the highest batting average for putting together a universe and just telling us what we want. Like, no, this is how we're going to do this thing. So the fact that now they're almost making these episodes feel like comic books. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's the vibe that I get when I watch
Yeah.
one. I'm like,
Short, sweet.
you're not getting a full story every single issue. You know, you're getting 24 pages that's going to push the story forward a little bit more. And every one of them ends exactly like a comic book does.
Yeah.
And that there's one thing that's just going to bite you just enough to hang on to where you're going to buy the next issue and you're going to stay subscribed to Disney Plus.
Well, and what's interesting about it is, I think with where we're at, with the fact that it's kicking off phase 4, with the fact that it's the first of the Disney Plus miniseries, and it's like, it's a different format.
Right.
I know we're going to dive into some of the Easter eggs and things like that, but it's got me questioning, you know, as someone in the show says, the devil's in the details. Like,
Right.
how much is just an Easter egg for the fans? How much of it is, no, this is so short that we're really packing some density in here and you need to pay attention.
Right.
How much of it is just misdirection because they want people talking and speculating?
Right.
I mean, some of it reminds me of what was going on when Lost was on TV.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, there was just so much like theory and speculation. It's
They
a whole
mentioned
new
Lost
world.
on Fat Man and Beyond. They were
Yeah.
like they're getting Lost vibes as far as just making you ask the question, what is going on?
I
You know?
am totally there.
Yeah.
I've been there from the beginning, and I'm still there. Like
Yeah.
3 episodes in.
Yeah, I do find myself wanting more. I said that last night after we
Yeah.
watched. Katie responded to me. She was like, "Well, that means it's good, right? Like you're digging it. You want more." And it's like, let me watch the whole thing right now. Let me binge
just
it.
like just
We're
let
going
me-
backwards.
Let me just devote 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it takes. And let's
Yeah.
just watch the whole thing. But
I will say it is nice, kind of having something to look forward at the end of the week, though. That
Yeah.
I'm like super hyped about. They did the same thing with the Mandalorian, and I think they've got their formula. They know what they're doing. So episode 1 definitely takes place in the 50s. So we're kind of getting a decade every episode. I think there are sirens going on outside. If you hear those in the microphones, forgive us. There's nothing we can do. Whoever that is, I hope you're okay.
it's the spoiler police.
Yeah, the spoiler police. Spoiler alert. So heavy influence in episode 1 from the 50s is I Love Lucy. That's kind of what they've done. So in general, I think it's been I Love Lucy for episode 1, Bewitched for episode 2.
Definitely.
And then what would you say episode 3
Kind
is?
of Brady Bunch.
I'm
I've
feeling
been
the
thinking Brady
Bunch.
Bunch the most, especially like cinematically, it feels
Yeah.
like the Brady
Yes.
Bunch. Like I went and actually watched some Brady Bunch clips on YouTube just to
Yeah.
be like, what does this feel like?
I mean, the intro theme, like even
Right.
just the panels.
Yes.
Right.
I was just like, the theme song isn't even remotely Brady Bunch to me.
Right.
But
Correct.
I walk away. I think even the font that they used was Brady Brunt. Let me try that again.
Brady Brunch.
Yeah, it was Brady Bunch-esque. So I don't know.
Yeah. So with the I Love Lucy vibes, they do this very tasteful thing where they kind of like play off of the quirks of those shows, but they also like implement lines that are obvious points in direction to previous things that have happened and also kind of like wink at where we're at. So like, for instance, the very opening scene, we get Wanda inside cleaning and she's like using her magic powers. And of course the style, while I Love Lucy is obviously not a magic show, they kind of like borrowed and maybe even foreshadowed a little bit some of the Bewitched magic that was shown in those, this is the movie magic that they were able to do back in the 50s. So she's cleaning off all this glassware that she has, and she accidentally breaks a plate over Vision's head. And somebody made this awesome point that when it breaks over her head, she goes, "Oh, my husband and his invincible head."
Yes.
And that was like an inner wish almost.
Yep.
If you remember how he went, Thanos literally ripped a stone out of his head and killed him.
It was so metal.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy. But just to hear the first, I think it was the first line out of her mouth in the whole series is an acknowledgement of her that it is a fact in her world, whether she's put there herself or somebody else put her there, that she is wanting her husband, what was a weak spot for him, to be invincible. And it's such a light, there's a laugh track going underneath it. So if you blink and you're not thinking about it in the right context, you'll miss it. But
I missed it.
he missed it.
I missed it.
But it's just there's little bits of that throughout the first 3 episodes that they're referencing things that have happened in passing that could be for anyone that's not initiated and hasn't seen all these things. It's just a line, but there's much more substance than what you think at face value anyway. What do you guys think about episode 1 specifically? So we basically see these characters in this life, but they kind of don't know what they're doing there.
Yeah.
They see on the calendar there's a heart on the 23rd. Also, the calendar did reference that we are definitely still in the future, like post-in-game future. The 23rd of August, I believe, was on a Friday maybe, and somebody went and found that date on the calendar and like, oh, this lines up with 2023.
Oh, wow.
So this is the year that we're in right now. So we're still post-in-game in timeline, even though we are in a 50s world, which is where we got to start getting to pulling on time and reality a little bit.
Yeah.
But they start finding out that they have something going on, but they don't want to let the other one think that they don't know what it is, that they forgot that this is maybe an important anniversary or we're supposed to go do some significant thing. And it turns out that it's just dinner with Vision's boss.
Yep.
And really, they spend a lot of the episode just preparing for that, and they let you. This is such a complex thing for them to try to juggle. They're telling a story that's pushing the plot forward with the MCU, but they're also like making sure that okay, we have all this room to play in this genre that nobody's really experienced. So let's play with some of these tropes. Let's make some people laugh, tell something lighthearted while still pulling our punches along the way to actually make sure we're telling a story. Anyway, before we get to the end of it, do you guys have any like Easter eggs that you thought were cool, that fun that they played off of, or
I will
that
pass
you
the
want to
torch.
mention?
I've had conversations with, I think, you and also Colby about all the Easter eggs that everybody's found, and I saw maybe 3. I was watching it more as just a fan, a spectator, as opposed to like trying to dissect it. So
I'll throw you both a soft pitch. What do we think about this character Agnes that is introduced?
I mean, if it weren't for our Vision reading beforehand, I probably wouldn't think anything of it. But there's a potential for some Agatha action happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know if I don't know enough about Agatha. All I know about her is what we've seen in Vision, the series we were just covering, or still covering. So maybe I get some Agatha vibes, but I don't know.
I definitely think Agnes is the MCU's version of Agatha Harkness, whether she's actually named Agatha Harkness or she's Agnes and that's what they're calling her.
Right.
Whatever. She's way too interested in Wanda. She seems to immediately sort of take on the, let me help you. Welcome to the neighborhood. Let me kind of shepherd you here. Right. There's definitely more in episode 2 and 3 that
for sure
I want to get into, but she immediately inserts herself into the coaching her for the evening and like how to seduce your husband.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's dropping hints and like subliminally sort of steering her.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'm also in the camp that thinks that is 100% Agatha Harkness. And there's also precedence based on something we'll talk about in the upcoming episodes, this episode, but when we're talking about episodes 2 and 3, of characters who, having watched it, we know for a fact are in this world and are going by a name that they will not be going by later. So there's precedence for Agnes becoming Agatha Harkness. I will say there's also a lot of reference to, I don't want to even say reference, just nods, winks to the devil. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little bit, in our Doctor Doom series, we actually came across the Marvel Comics devil, Mephisto. And he is definitely a character that has dealt with Wanda in the past in the comic books. So it's canon that they would be involved. And actually in the comics, I'm going to save this a little bit until we get into episode 3 because it's relevant there. But anyway, just moving forward, Agnes does seem to be a character of interest. So the plot, again, they're hosting this dinner they find out for Vision's boss. It wasn't this actual important date, but Wanda thought it was, and she's like dressed in her very pretty nightgown when she gets home and accidentally starts flirting with the boss. And there's some funny comedic moments. Again, they play off the tropes extremely well of like a 50s sitcom. So they're hosting dinner. What's her name? That's in that '70s show. The mom that makes it.
Oh, Kitty is her name in the show.
In the show.
I forget what.
You
her,
look that up just so I don't want to make
Deborah
sure.
Jo Rupp. Is that it?
Deborah Jo Rupp.
I think that is right, but
If
he's
it
got the
is,
computer.
That sounds right. That's
what the guy in the chair's for.
I don't know. I just saw that name at the end. And I was like, that's got to be her. I don't know if it is. I just pulled that out of nowhere.
Okay, well, if you're trying to paint a picture and you're listening, future Alex, put a picture of her from that '70s show on the screen right now. She was in that '70s show and is definitely a very quirky character. And I'm sure I haven't seen her in a bunch of stuff, but I'm sure that '70s show wasn't her first TV or film.
She was in Friends.
Okay,
That's
that's
right,
right. She was in
yeah.
Friends, and then I'm sure she's in stuff even before that. So
Yeah, you're right.
Deborah Jo
Sweet.
Rupp, is that what you said her name was?
I should have saved it for trivia.
Yeah, I would have got it wrong. She is playing Vision's boss's wife and is incredible in this episode.
Yeah.
Like, easily my favorite moment from episode 1. So they're having dinner. The kind of comedic layer that's going over the top of everything is they didn't prepare dinner and Wanda doesn't have anything, and then Agnes comes in and just magically has all this materials and goods and groceries.
Just happened to have lobster.
Yeah, just happen to
And
have
steak.
steak and lobster and all this stuff, this 3-course meal. And they want to impress Vision's boss because Vision's trying to get a promotion, though he doesn't know
Yeah.
what he actually does at his job, even after talking to somebody and asking.
It's like whenever you have those dreams and you know that things are happening, even though there's nothing to tell you that it should be
There's no
happening.
rhyme or reason
You're just
to
like,
it.
oh, I'm in Cincinnati, even though I've never been to Cincinnati. I don't know what Cincinnati looks like, but I know I'm in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I do. You should
ahead.
finish your thought, but I do want to talk about the sort of amnesia
Yeah.
aspect of what's going on.
Well, I'll just wrap up the general idea. And again, we are past the spoiler warning, but just in case you sneezed when I said that earlier, spoiler warning. We find ourselves sitting down at dinner. She finally magically gets some dinner together. She makes breakfast for dinner. And there's this running joke of her being European and from Sokovia and how it's acceptable from where she's from to where what was considered then is
Sokovian.
yeah,
I loved that.
Yeah, scantily clad attire and breakfast for dinner. How European.
You
But
got
they-
Brenner, yo?
What was it?
You got Brenner, yo? No, that's from Scrubs. I was just saying, dang, you got Brenner, yo?
I don't remember that line.
It's a deep cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to play a quick game of steak?
How do you play that? You eat steak?
They're sitting down for dinner and they start asking Wanda and Vision like not personal, but just like tell us about yourselves. When did you meet? When did you move here? Where did you come from before? What day did you get married?
Weren't they like all right one after
Yeah,
the
it's
other?
like bang, 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 bang.
Boom,
But
boom, 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 boom.
most people would be able to relatively quickly respond to that question. And then Wanda and Vision are like, oh yeah, of course. Well, we met, and then we got married. And they're realizing that they can't recall these actual moments in their life, which again is playing into that theme of this amnesia that Nick is going to talk about in a second. But just they can't think of it, and the feeling of the scene suddenly changes to a much more. The music kind of cuts out a little bit. It's a little more serious in tone. Like we've had these kind of funny moments, and then suddenly his boss starts choking. And this is my favorite scene in the whole episode 1, and one of mine that I've seen so far in all 3 episodes. He starts choking on a piece of egg or something or steak or no, it's
like
probably
breakfast sausage.
breakfast sausage, yeah. And he's choking and he's just sitting there, and they're all at a table very similar sitting to this one. And Wanda and Vision are just sitting there, and they have this look on their face, almost. I get a sense of like a realization, at least, or spell broken. It's still because we don't know the direction that they're going with of like what actually is going on right now. We only have hints and ideas. That there's just a break in character almost, a world breaking as we talked about earlier, and the whole time, I forget her name in the episode, but Deborah Jo is just telling her husband to stop it, like jokingly. She's like, stop it. Oh, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. And it just starts getting more and more sinister. And it gets almost to a point of where it goes from joking to seriousness to begging for mercy.
Yeah.
While still having this very menacing and dark, twisty, eerie feeling in the air.
Yep.
Until eventually Wanda, who has been talking with like this timbre in her voice that you you would definitely remember from 50s sitcom era television. Completely void of that in her voice, says Vision help him. And it is a very modern, it is out of character, and it is a very nuanced thing. And it just shows like the acting chops of Elizabeth Olsen. It's incredible throughout a lot of these very subdued moments. And Vision gets on the ground because he's fallen over at this point, still choking, phases through his neck and pulls the meat out of his hand. And then they get up like nothing happened, and they leave and thank him. And his boss leaves saying, we're going to talk about that promotion on Monday. And there's more funny moments, and it's just boom.
Right.
It's back to normal. And it was so twisted for just a moment, and it came out of nowhere, and I'm getting chills again. Just
got really dark.
Yeah.
Really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. And that's episode 1. And as we're leaving, they're sitting there talking on the couch, and she says, well, I think that all went well. And again, just almost ignoring what the heck just happened. And they're sitting on the couch, and they have a little kiss, and Vision touches the remote, and the heart fades in on them. And slowly we fade out of the screen. And
Did it do the aspect change there?
it did not.
No.
Okay.
Fades out of the screen. Actually, it might have.
It may have just been super subtle in it.
It might have been very subtle,
didn't
and we'll
catch
talk
it
about
that
that
time,
for sure.
yeah.
So hold that one for when we get the very tasty ones. We pull out of the screen. It's like you see this old-timey television. The credits are rolling, and we're in like this high-tech security surveillance room, and somebody's sitting there in a jacket, and they're taking a note, and they close a notebook. There's a couple logos with some swords on them sitting there. The person stands up, walks away, roll credits. And spoiler alert, that is the logo for SWORD. Tori, check me on this. The SWORD acronym.
It's different in the MCU than it is in the comics.
Right.
And I think...
You think there's something there?
I think it's for a reason. So in the comics, sorry, Tori.
You can confirm him on this.
It's... The only difference between the two is the W and what it stands for.
Okay.
So it's... I believe it's Sentient World Observation Reconnaissance Division.
Right.
Or something like that.
Right.
In the MCU, apparently, the W doesn't stand for world, it stands for weapon.
Okay.
And so,
I wasn't sure. I thought they were different, but I thought for some reason the S was the different one. Like it was space instead of sentient, which doesn't create the change as much as world to weapon does. That's quite a big difference.
But I've wondered about it because, as we'll get into as the episodes sort of progress,
right.
I've wondered, why is SWORD involved here? Because traditionally in the comics, SWORD is like very space focused.
Yeah.
Right.
Question mark.
Yeah. So we end there, right? Tori, can you confirm the back end of the SWORD acronym? Do you have that up?
It's
Just said the whole
very
thing?
close. Sentient World Observation and Response Department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Response.
I'm trying to find where it might be different for the.
I think he's right. I do remember seeing somewhere that it was weapon.
I saw that on
World.
the SWORD Wikipedia page.
Joss Whedon was actually the one that introduced it in the comics themselves.
Right, because it happened in that X-Men run that we were talking about. Astonishing X-Men, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I meant to mention that in my what you've been reading as what I'm about to pick back up from those Astonishing
You
X-Men.
should, because who knows what they'll pull from it. We're already dipping into some mutant stuff, which we'll talk about more in a minute.
Here's something that's cool about SWORD.
Yeah.
They wanted to introduce SWORD in the Thor film, in the very first Thor film, but didn't at the time because Fox owned the rights to Abigail Brand and what's the name of the Lockheed?
Yeah.
The dragon.
Right.
That they're both involved in SWORD, but
Right.
I guess they've wanted to introduce SWORD into the MCU
Forever
a long
ago.
time ago.
Yeah, and they have now, in a way. Basically, I'm trying. There's so much things going through my head right now that I want to make sure that we're hitting all the highlights, but also going into the deep dives.
I also want to real quick confirm that yes, it is weapon and
In the MCU.
yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the whole thing is sentient weapon observation and reconnaissance.
Response Division?
Sentient World Observation and Response Department.
Okay, cool. Awesome. We're going to have to dive way deep in this and move a lot quicker through these episodes, but again, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. And we're back, and we're going to jump right into doing a quick rundown of episodes 2 and 3, and then we'll start speculating about some stuff just for time's sake, because
we went a little long, and if you notice, our buddy Torrance had to bail. So
yep,
that was
totally fine
because we just can't stop talking.
Yeah, bunch of talkers on a podcast.
Sorry.
No, it's good. That was joking. It's good.
Yeah,
It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. See, there are two ways that you can feel that it's good.
Yeah.
You either have is it Bruce Almighty,
Correct.
Evan Almighty, it's good, or the Chevy Chase from Christmas Vacation. It's good. It's good. It's good.
yeah, right.
I always go to the Christmas Vacation one.
Yeah, I'm a Bruce Almighty guy.
Yeah.
I watched that the other day.
It's been a long time.
Good times. Elijah had never seen it. He also didn't know who Jim Carrey was.
Wow.
What?
Getting up there, fellas.
Man.
I mean, I can understand
theirs.
that. He was kind of nowhere to be seen for years.
Yeah, most of Elijah's life.
Yeah.
He knew him as the villain from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Finally, that's when he was like, "Oh, that guy."
Wow.
Yeah. So you've made it, Jim.
I never saw that. Was that good?
Don't know. I heard it was decent. I heard it was pretty good. Anyway, WandaVision. What we're really here for. So let's break down episode 2 and 3. 3 just came out yesterday. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and pause this and go watch those episodes.
Check out those Legends shorts first.
Yeah, it really does it justice. Like, you don't want us to spoil these for you when you can actually see the creator's intent. So, episode 2, moving to the next decade, episode decade in the 60s, and we definitely have Bewitched vibes all over
Absolutely.
the place.
Yeah.
Super awesome. This is where we get some of the fun animated stuff that you were talking about,
Yeah.
like we saw in that sitcom. So basically in this one, we open up and they have like an animated intro. And I think also, you might be able to look this up. They had the people who did the Frozen music, I think, write some of the theme songs for WandaVision. I think Disney's like, we know how to get a hold of these people, and they obviously write some pretty catchy tunes.
I still haven't seen Frozen.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I've seen the first 16 minutes of it 100 times.
Yeah.
Because of playing it in the band room. But that's it.
Yeah, they definitely didn't make it for men in their mid 30s, but
Yeah.
just watching it casually, it's nice. It's got a good moment. I think it was I'm pretty sure it was the people that wrote the music for Frozen, like the same arrangers and composers. But just fun fact. So we see some of that animated style going in. Was that right?
That's true. It was Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez, the award-winning married musical masterminds, best known for writing earworm hits for Disney like Frozen's Let It Go and Coco's Remember Me.
Yeah. Okay, so Coco and Frozen. Those
Married musical masterminds.
Wow.
I'm still hung up on that.
Alliteration.
Four of them.
Married musical masterminds. Married musical masterminds. Married musical masterminds.
I'm going to do a Ken Burns on him when he's doing that in the episode. Yeah. So anyway, they got an awesome team to write that music.
Oh, wait, no, that was you.
The P moment?
No, the Ken Burns. I remember whenever I was working with you on it, and we were making that video of my my band piece reference recordings, and I was just talking about, you're like, this is called Ken Burns. I'm not sure why. And I was like, well,
The guy, yeah.
Did you know that he was a filmmaker at that point? Because I think
At that point, I didn't know.
you
but
knew
he's like
him
in the
as the guy who was named for the slowly panning camera. Right. And I was just
No,
like,
he's
no,
a documentary filmmaker, like an iconic one.
Whenever I started and interrupted you talking, I didn't realize I was going to end up making fun of you. So I'm sorry about that. I thought I was going to be making fun of somebody else.
I don't feel made fun of, so I'll allow it.
I feel
Got
it.
thick skin. You feel it.
Sorry. I just had to, was thinking about
Think about
how
Ken.
some people know people. Your son knows Jim Carrey as the Sonic guy. You know Ken Burns as the guy who has
Responsible for this film
this
move,
one move
this technique.
in Final Cut, not for his.
Amazing. I actually did go on in my
You know
major and
now,
watch a
yeah.
ton of Ken Burns documentaries, so know him quite well now.
Sorry.
You were saying.
This is what I do. I'm the derailer of this podcast.
Drew's the derailer of this podcast.
Yeah.
We are now a Ken Burns and Frozen podcast.
And Danny DeVito.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that they did have quite the powerhouse team writing some of the music, so they had fun with the jingles and just the overall aesthetic of some of the music. But I say all this because there are bountiful Easter eggs that I want to mention in episode 2 just during the animated intro.
100%.
Yeah, so one of the first ones that carries some weight in our listeners of our Vision episodes will realize, or if you have any sort of history with Vision comics, when they are coming up through the floor, like you know how in like the Flintstones, you'll see like the earth, different layers of the earth and stuff under their house and cobwebs and rats and stuff. There's a helmet buried under the ground of the Grim Reaper.
Yep.
Winking heavily at...
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, because of course, spoiler again, if you haven't listened to our episodes. Also, if you started on 53, 54, what is wrong with you? Go back and listen to our Vision series. Anyway, Grim Reaper, obviously iconic villain for the Vision. The quick synopsis, he's the brother of Simon Williams, a.k.a. Wonder Man, whom Vision gets his brain patterns from. And he hates the idea that his brother was essentially bastardized and taken and just... He doesn't like that his brother was used, his likeness was used to give life to something else.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a really cool Easter egg. And then we get to where they're animated and they're in the supermarket. Did you catch these?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are 2 panels up top, and one of them says Bova milk.
Yep.
Bova is this essentially like a cow person. It's like if a cow walked up on all 4 legs. I believe it's a he. I believe that is the preferred pronoun.
The one that was around the table.
At the dinner table, yeah.
Okay.
Bova, who actually raised or actually made sure that Wanda and her brother Pietro were successfully taken to whoever raised them at the time. I believe it was another guy that was at that table, started with a C. The guy that they are under the impression for a long time is their father before they find out Magneto is their father. Anyway, was this an essential character that cared for Wanda and Pietro? So Bova Milk was a nice wink of a... Also, fun fact, I'm 87% sure that this is true, which is pretty good. I'm pretty sure that Bova is responsible in the comics for creating Rocket Raccoon and experimenting on him and bringing him to life.
So my
Don't
question
you dare
was,
bring Danny DeVito
was
into
even
this.
more relevant. That was the question. Like Danny DeVito was James Gunn was interested in him voicing Rocket Raccoon.
Oh, wow.
For a little while, but then he was like, he's an old guy, he can't work. So you just made my question relevant.
Debatable. But anyway, so we see Bova Milk up there was a nice wink. I still think there's definitely room for, if they would bring Bova in, Guardians of the Galaxy would make sense. That would work.
Sure.
You know, so they could bring that character in later, and maybe they're just winking now. I don't know. We're in kind of this reality warping world. Maybe we'll see some Bova references. But then there's another poster up there that says Auntie A, which is another wink at Agatha Harkness, and even more so of a wink because right next to Auntie A, she's sitting next to a black cat, and we know that Agatha Harkness has a black cat named Ebony.
And it's Auntie A's like kitty litter or something like that.
Yeah, it's something cat related. Yeah. So
Wasn't there a third one?
probably. I'm sure there's plenty that
It was
didn't
either
even
a
get.
panel or a product, but it was Wonder, like oats or something like
right.
that. And I
towards Wonder Man.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, because again, Simon Williams, Wonder Man.
And this is so, like I was saying earlier, this is where I'm questioning. All right, the episodes are short. I think we're only getting 9 of them, unless there's going to be another season.
Right.
How much is just Easter eggs for us?
Right.
How much is it's actually going to go somewhere?
Right.
How much of it is just misdirection?
Man, it's got to be a little bit of everything. They don't have time to give us everything we want. These shows aren't comic books, even though they try to make them feel like it in a lot of ways, and they succeed in a lot of ways. But I'd be very surprised if we get an actual Simon Williams anytime soon. You know, especially because we've taken a different direction to actually creating the Vision. You know, we took out the Simon Williams and put in the Mind Stone. You know, we replaced the need for him. And then also, like, Tony and Bruce, you know, he's a little bit of Jarvis, Tony, Bruce, the Mind Stone, this concoction. So we don't necessarily need that character. There's probably a way that we can tastefully retcon some stuff to bring him in. I heard a rumor that James Gunn wanted to bring him into Guardians 2, and it just didn't make the cutting floor. But actually, I know for a fact that there were scenes done with an actor to play Simon Williams Wonder Man that never made the cutting floor.
I heard someone else make that point that and probably kind of a stretch, but
Right.
could Simon Williams be present in this reality as an actor in this sort of sitcom universe?
Well, since we're spitballing some theories already, here's one I just thought of. What if... This is brilliant. They have to do this. I'm going to be mad if they don't do it now. Kevin, call me. What if, through all the madness, and again, through 3 episodes, we really don't know exactly what all is happening yet. Through all the madness, what if Vision doesn't actually make it into this, or out of this thing? And we still find him dead at the end of this. So it's comic book accurate that he does become like this gray, way more robotic character that doesn't have the brain patterns of a human and the nuances of a human being. But what if, to bring him back, then they take Simon Williams and make him donate his brain patterns to bring something to Vision? So we do it retroactively, but also in a way that makes sense without changing it into a retcon moment.
Would the gray one be kind of like the white one we saw?
Yeah, when I say gray, white, they're interchangeable in my mind.
I was picturing the gray from when we saw him at the end after the
I think that was
pulled.
their version of the white one.
Same.
Cool.
Yeah, I think they were one and the same. So maybe we'll get that character eventually. I mean, we have had a human being has acted as that character on camera, and that footage exists somewhere. I don't think they'll bring back the same actor because reasons. But anyway, that's something that could happen, maybe. Let's finish episode 2, just a general synopsis of what happens. So the whole thing is revolving around a local talent show where... Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the woman that was running it, what was her name?
Dottie.
Like, she was giving me some I know more than I'm saying vibes.
Right.
Did you guys get that?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
I think, and Nick will talk about this, there's some Truman Show vibes going on, I think.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. There's Jim Carrey. I didn't think about that until just now, but I was getting that vibe, and I never knew what it was that was getting into my brain.
Yeah, it's like there's planet actors that know what's going
Philip
on.
Glass is in the wings somewhere, getting ready to play his...
I didn't know he did the music for that.
Oh, he made a cameo in it. Yeah, he did music, and they had a scene where he was actually over there playing synthesizer while Truman was sleeping.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So they're doing this talent show, and Vision and Wanda decide they're going to do a magic show, but not like using their magic. It's going to be the cheesy magic from the 60s.
So they get caught.
Yeah. They want everybody to catch them, and it'd be obvious how they do it. So they're doing their practice bits. There's some more Easter eggs here. It's like an obvious imprint of an Infinity Stone on their vanishing cabinet that they have. Some other things. They're doing magic tricks. I can't remember the exact line. If I think of it in the next break, I'll bring it up. But there was another reference of... Oh, I remember it now. Vision is saying, I'm going to make Wanda disappear. And then they stress just enough to make it a point in the moment. And I'm going to bring her back exactly as she would have been. And again, we're in this world of Wanda trying to bring back Vision exactly as he was before. Yep. And it's just this, again, it's so impassioned. There's a laugh track going over it. So it makes you feel like this is supposed to be a funny moment. But it carries so much more weight in the moment than you're led to believe if you're just kind of passively watching. So they go out. Vision decides to try to become part of the watch team after the neighborhood watch after this funny scene of them realizing a tree, or what they think is a tree, was knocking on their window at night. And there's kind of a funny romp in the sheets moment. You know what I'm talking about?
Which is a very, like... I love how they're trying to be period accurate.
For sure.
And so in episode 2, I enjoyed episode 2 a lot more than episode 1. And I mean, episode 3 was great as well. Right. I mean, I'm invested. I'm enjoying it as it's going on. But I love that it moves from this, the beds are apart, kind of 50s television vibe to the beds are together. And then, like also in this episode, Wanda, who... It's a recurring theme in episode 2, even more than episode 1, like desperately wants to fit in.
Right.
She's the only person in the committee meeting wearing pants, not a dress. And like there's, I don't know, they're being very period accurate, but also using it as a device to like move the story along.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we'll see a very perfect example of that at the very end of this episode.
Yeah.
So Vision goes on to hang out with the boys of the neighborhood watch to kind of implement some change and make sure the neighborhood's being safe. And sorry, I'm burping while I'm talking. During that meeting, he finds out that it's kind of just a boys' club where they're gossiping and eating donuts, and somebody gives him some gum, which ends up gumming up his system and having some adverse effects to the talent show later. During this time, Wanda is at home and hears something outside and goes outside, and in her hedge bush is a helicopter. Now, keep in mind of the period we're in, helicopters were, I believe, existed there, but definitely not in the variety with as much technology as they do now. And this looked like a drone already, and it's in color. It's in Technicolor. Everything else has been black and white. Yeah, it's very Pleasantville. And it has a sword logo on it. And she's just holding it.
Oh, I didn't see the sword logo.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I don't know the significance of this. Maybe it's just a wink because the color designers and the set designers have liberty to wink at moments and make just continuity connection in general. I feel like it's important to say a little asterisk for all of these things. It's in the best interest of the viewer to assume creative intent was on purpose for the creator. If something is related to something, there are people paid to literally sit down and think, what color relates the most to this idea? And they get paid a lot of money to do that. So the fact that the helicopter and some new technology was in the same color palette as Iron Man, maybe just a wink of where we've come, where we've been, of technology. She has history with that character.
What was the first thing that we saw that was red? I've forgotten. Was it in the first episode?
The very first thing, and I didn't even think about this until I was reading some stuff, but it was actually in that toaster ad.
Yes,
was the little red light blinking.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's another Stark reference.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a Stark toaster, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Stark Industries toaster.
But that was the very first red
Yes,
thing.
yes.
Right. And then
I didn't even think about that. That was the first. It's a very subtle way to introduce some
that's
color.
the subtle one. But then I think the very first color thing we see is this helicopter.
Yeah.
Like the thing that's like very obviously noticeably.
Right.
Because the light, I almost didn't catch. But I
Exactly.
feel like that there was even a musical cue that was like something as
Well, they definitely used some sound
they-
design from Stark's suit in
Yeah.
that toaster.
Okay.
That was awesome.
Maybe that's what it was.
Which
It
I
was, it was troubling. Like it sounded like it was about to blow up, not like it was a
Yes.
household item making toast.
Yeah, so we're rewinding, but I feel like I forgot to talk about this when we were talking about episode 1. That's an important moment. So the two commercials, let's talk about those real quick. We'll recap them and then explain what I think those mean. So the first one was a toaster, and they made some really funny sexist comments about your woman screwing up your toast in the morning. You keep burning it. Try the new Stark toaster, whatever. I forget the name and the branding.
Which is another hilarious. It's not hilarious, but it's like a period accurate kind of nod, which is like its own level of sadness.
Yeah, they've rolled their eyes a couple times at sexism and
Right.
men mansplaining things in the first 3 episodes, and it's brilliant. So we see this toaster, and it's made by Stark Industries, and we hear the kind of the pulsar blast that he does from his arms, like the wee, that charging sign, and then it starts beeping like it's going to explode. Pause on that one. Later, we have a Strucker watch, and if you remember, Strucker is the name of the Hydra agent who was experimenting on Wanda and her brother Pietro during Age of Ultron that gave them their powers. Cool. There's an obvious connection there, but I want to rewind back to the toaster one. In Age of Ultron, one of the first times we see her flexing some of her acting is just like how hurt she is and recalling this moment where her home was attacked.
Yep.
And her brother are laying under rubble next to a Stark weapon that was beeping.
Yep.
And they thought for sure that at any moment it was going to go off and kill them.
Yep.
And there's this moment where the actress inside that episode is just sitting there staring with this worried look on her face as this thing is beeping and just waiting, and there's tension and this tension. And then the toast finally pops, kind of like a Jack in the Box moment.
Yep.
Cool. So this is her inner conscience in this world, remembering this very dark moment, which parallels perfectly with the other dark moment of Strucker, this man that beat them and experimented on them in the creation of her powers. So
Yeah.
just 2 moments that they're playing as funny commercials in continuity, but also in the greater world. If we're in Wanda's head, like some of us might be speculating, or we're in this reality that she's created, she's pasting out these internal things onto the world, and it's very cleverly well done. But again, it's blink and you'll miss it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really cool moment. So moving back in episode 2, the helicopter, she's staring at it, and then I believe Agnes comes and
Yes.
and just shows up.
It's the star of the show.
Right. Yeah. Immediately meta world breaking things, just kind of referencing, fourth wall break. It's the star of the show.
And this sort of plays heavily into my theory, which, we don't have to go deep into right this moment. But as we've noticed in episodes 2 and 3, and then you can even sort of like realize what was going on in episode 1. Like, I feel like that's an example of Agnes steering.
Yeah.
Right? The moment that Wanda is like, what is this? What's going on?
Right. There's no
She's
reason
there.
for that to exist. Yeah. And then Agnes
she
is there.
does the, in my opinion, the misdirection, the steering of it's the star of the show, and then
right.
sets up, I think, Dottie as like a fake antagonist for Wanda.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense because she ends up going to this little I don't know, is it just like a planning meeting for this local talent show that they're going to be in, and Dottie is the stereotypical Stepford wife that has everything perfect and all the other women are trying to impress her and she's not impressed at all with them, and she has to be the perfect one and the one getting all the attention, and Wanda doesn't fit that role at all. She contrasts it quite nicely actually within the series. But at this meeting we meet a character named Geraldine.
Yep.
Who, spoiler alert again, if you're privy to everything, and again we're kind of moving fast so we can start getting into the conspiracy theories. Geraldine is actually going to be playing Monica Rambeau, aka Spectrum, in the Marvel Universe. And you might be like, I think I've heard that name before. Monica Rambeau is the daughter of Maria Rambeau, also known as Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers' best friend from Captain Marvel 1. So you saw her as a little girl in Captain Marvel 1 helping Carol pick the final colors for her outfit. And she actually does go on in comic books to be Captain Marvel and has been several other comic book names. But is currently Spectrum. I don't know if I'm assuming that's what they'll call her in the MCU because that's the most recent long-standing one. But she essentially has like light manipulation and energy absorption powers. Really cool character. But she's in this world. And that meeting kind of wraps up, and Wanda is somehow got tabbed to clean up after everything. And then there's this radio playing kind of in the background, and they're in this outside setting, and it starts kind of like crackling, and we get some feedback in the radio, and you hear a voice coming through saying, Wanda, 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 who's doing this to you? And it's just reaching out to her. And this is another moment like the stop from episode 1 where the choking, where it's world breaking.
Yeah.
Things start falling apart, and we start realizing everything's not as it seems. And during that moment, this is the next flash of color we get. Dottie is holding a wine glass, breaks it, and her hand starts bleeding, and it's a bloody red.
Yeah.
Contrasting
she
it to black
doesn't
and
even
white.
seem to notice or care.
Right.
That it's colorful. So does she see it, or is it just whatever? Who cares?
Well,
I don't know.
It goes back into that thing we talked about Truman Show a little bit. Are they just they find the actors that can unwaveringly play the character no matter what, do not break character, method actors, if you will. If so, Dottie is fitting the bill because she's completely, but she kind of calls her on some stuff. Right before that happened, did you catch that? She was like,
Yeah.
We're on to you. And that's another moment where Wanda seems to kind of break character a little bit and go, I don't know what you think you've heard, but we're not here to hurt anybody. She specifically mentions that, and it's like, why would you jump to hurt somebody unless you weren't kind of in on it a little bit? Did either of you recognize the voice that was calling out to her?
I didn't.
How mad are you going to be if we talk about it?
I mean, I have figured it would happen.
Yeah.
So
It's not like, I mean, it's a spoiler, but not like but it is somebody that maybe, if you're eagle-eyed when you can see the character before you press play on Disney Plus. The character is in a screen on that first picture with all the TVs. Very clearly able to see if you look. He's on his side. It's Jimmy Woo, the FBI agent from Ant-Man 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also known as Fake Jim from The Office, or Asian Jim.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Right. So
that's how I'm always going to picture him.
I can't believe you spoiled that for me.
Right.
That means nothing to me other than the fact that
Well,
he was an Ant-Man, I guess.
I guess we're just assuming that because he was high up in the FBI, that maybe he promoted all the way up to a sword agent now and is working through that. So, but he's for sure confirmed for this.
Okay.
And has been for a while. So Jimmy Woo is the one that's trying to make contact with her, which brings in a whole mess of other things. So anyway, the Wanda kind of figures out, I think, that somebody's trying to contact her and breaks the radio, and this whole fallout happens. Fast forward to the show. How are we doing on time?
Close.
20.
Close.
It's almost time for chapter 4.
We're going to go back into the talent show in just a second. We'll be right back. Cool. So we jump into this talent show, and there's a lot of funny moments, but basically Vision is still gummed up from this piece of gum that he ate earlier, which is hilarious that a piece of gum is bringing this Infinity Stone wielding android to his knees. But he basically plays off as he's drunk is the whole thing. He can't control himself, and he starts doing real magic. Well, I don't know if what he's doing is considered magic.
Real whatever he does.
Yeah, real weird stuff. And it's in front of all these people who have no idea, at least in this reality, that he can do magic, or at least they don't think that they know.
They don't let on if they know.
Wanda is spending the entire show trying to use her magic to create what are essentially magic props for the people to see on purpose. So they'll go, oh, it was just a pulley and a crane and some mirrors and a bunch of other things. And this piano that he lifted is actually just a cardboard cutout.
I was like, that was my grandma's.
I love that.
Yeah, lots of hilarious moments. So she's actually doing very impressive magic to make people think that it's not magic. It's kind of a weird reverse.
Very clever.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
in the moment.
her kind of, you can see the gears turning on, like, oh gosh, how am I going to explain this one away? Like, how are we going to make this look like it was just an illusion?
Right, yeah. So that ends, and she goes back behind the curtains. She's like, what the heck is going on here? And she figures it out. There's a piece of gum in there, and she uses some magic to get it out of him, and he feels much better. Should note that the final trick was pulling Geraldine, a.k.a. Monica Rambeau, out of the chest, which was actually a real piece of magic, the one that you saw in the opening episode. And she was very confused when she came out of that, but they kind of played it off like a real magician doesn't reveal her secrets. So it went over well. They end up winning this award and going home and are celebrating the evening, and they hear a noise outside, go outside, and this is another world-breaking moment. It's very dark, and they look down the street, and this manhole in the middle of the street pops up, and somebody in what looks like a hybrid between a hazmat suit and a beekeeper's suit gets out and turns around, and there's bees swarming all around him, and he also has a sword logo on him.
Yep.
End episode. Nope. Got ahead of myself.
No.
She says no.
Yeah.
And it's very reminiscent of House of M. That's all I'm going to say because I want Drew to read that without knowing what the heck happens. As soon as she says no, like after this, she kind of freaks out. The whole world rewinds, goes back inside, and Vision and her are talking again. It's kind of a re-quote of everything they just said. And then they look down, and Wanda is just suddenly pregnant. Like probably 3 months along, got a little bit of a belly baby bump. And suddenly the whole world starts going Technicolor, and Vision turns into this vibrant wine red color that he is, and everything just starts changing into a different decade, which is this plot device we were talking about earlier. Yep. She realized somebody was breaking into her world. She said no. Everything rewinds, and now the canon in her reality is we're switching to another decade, another place, another show that they can't find her in. She's changing everything again. So at this point, we're feeling way more like Wanda's in charge here, and she doesn't want anybody to come in.
Yeah.
So relatively quick thoughts, theories on what's going on here.
Actually, I hadn't thought that until moments before you said it. But okay.
Do you think it now?
Yes. I mean, I think in the back of my mind, my subconscious was putting it together.
Yeah.
Because, she says no, and it rewinds, and she says it like she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
And,
Well, it's the first time that we get...
Yeah.
That we got a little bit of her running things when she said, "Vision, help him." But maybe that's just her telling her husband, and her husband listening to her.
I didn't feel it in episode 1 necessarily, but yeah.
But this was defiantly,
Yep.
no, I rewind. I change, and we move on, and we fade to a new decade with color, and the episode ends.
Or baby, as
Yeah.
far as you know.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right. We're going to talk about it in a second anyway. We've already talked about that in the Vision episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Wanda and Vision have babies. Thoughts from you, Nick, on this one?
I have a theory that I would
let's talk
definitely
about
like
it.
to share, but I think it would make more sense once we've discussed episode 3. I'll just say that at this point, when I was watching, I was very bought in on the kind of the Truman Show sort of thing that's going on.
Right.
I don't know how much I'm there anymore.
Right. I mean, it still could be.
Sure.
It
or,
has
or aspects of it.
It has
at
an
least.
option, an a la carte for that, if you will.
But definitely at this point, I was like, okay, it's obvious that Wanda this is her universe, or she's at least in control of something.
Right. For sure. Yeah. With that in mind, I feel like it'll be quicker to run through this third episode.
Yeah.
So essentially, here's the overarching theme. Wanda's pregnant now. We open up Brady Bunch style. Everything's in the 70s. The clothing is nice and fun and hip, and fans of the Brady Bunch will have a good time here. But ignoring that and getting to the deeper plot of things, again, go watch these many times. You'll catch a whole bunch of stuff. Wanda's pregnant, and she's going through her pregnancy very fast. The doctor shows up and is like, oh, yeah, about 4 months along. And then Vision's like, oh, what would the size of the fruit be if it was about 12 hours long? Referring to like, your baby's about the size of a grapefruit now or whatever. The doctor doesn't know that it's been hours since she got pregnant. So through this episode, Wanda carries through this pregnancy at an extremely quick rate and is she's nesting, she's getting the house ready, and her powers are going out of control as she gets further into her pregnancy. She starts making this butterfly hanging thing over the crib turn into real butterflies. And eventually when her water breaks, it starts raining in the house and in the neighborhood, and she's causing power outages, and electronics are malfunctioning.
I was wondering I don't know if this is the time to mention it, if it's not necessarily hers, but one of...
What's not hers?
I'm wondering if it might be a kid inside.
It's very possible.
Exercising those powers, that's like doing the wild magic type thing. Butterflies, rain inside.
Well, let's just mention it. We've mentioned it before, so if you've listened to us before, this isn't a spoiler. This could be where they're going. It could not be. Wanda and Vision have twin boys in the comics. They have twins at the end of this episode. Those twins, Billy and Tommy, go on to be Wiccan and Speed. I should have said Speed and Wiccan. Tommy is Wiccan. Speed is Billy. Wiccan, as his name insinuates, has powers very similar to his mother into the magic realm, and Speed, as his name insinuates, is kind of like his uncle. And they kind of play off Vision having some speedy powers in this as well, but it's more canonically accurate to say from Quicksilver, like his uncle. So that could be that maybe a baby in there is doing some voodoo magic and crazy stuff.
That's kind of just what I was thinking.
Yeah. So we go through, they get into this really funny scene where Geraldine, as she's being called right now, but Monica Rambeau comes in and is asking to borrow a bucket to fix all the water damage in her house that she called. And again, nobody knows that they're magic and causing all these powers. And she ends up having to help birth these children. Like she sits her down and does all this stuff. And am I missing any major plot points? Vision goes out to check on the neighborhood after all the things go out. He has to go get the doctor because he thinks she's about to give birth now. The doctor was going to go on vacation, but he can't leave for some reason. And then we kind of point to later him not being able to leave. Like he uses the word escape.
He has that interesting conversation with the neighbor and Agnes.
Right. So while they give birth to the babies, the doctor makes it over. Vision puts him on his back and Speed runs there, makes him sick almost. And they're talking about, they're healthy babies. And Geraldine and Wanda are in there with the babies, and Vision sees the doctor out. The doctor leaves and makes a quip about, we're not able to escape, is the word he uses. And he kind of knowingly looks at Vision. Vision starts to walk in, looks over and sees Agnes and
Herb.
Herb is his name, thank you. Herb, who kind of weirdly and world-breakingly was cutting through their hedge wall earlier in the episode in a very kind of... he was trimming weeds, but also pressing into the brick and just kind of staring at Venom.
That's a serious piece of machinery.
That's what I was
it
thinking.
is. Yeah. Who knows what it is? Maybe Sword made it.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're talking, and Vision starts overhearing them, and they're hiding something. It's obvious. Basically, they start asking, is Geraldine inside there with Wanda? And he's like, yes, why? And they're like, yeah, it's just kind of interesting. You know, she's not really from around here. She's new to the area. She doesn't have a home. She doesn't have a place to live. And I will say, I toyed with whether to bring this up as a possible creative intent. And I will say, just because I thought of it, that it stands to be that other people could have thought of it, that even though Herb is a black man in this scene, the trope of white people whispering over the hedge to a black person in their neighborhood was not lost on me, knowing that is a legitimate thing that has happened to black people moving into predominantly white neighborhoods in the past. And that was a trope that it came to my mind. Now, there are black people living in this neighborhood, and maybe that wasn't what it was, but, you know, an interpretation was had by me that as a possibility of some influence. Anyway, they're kind of like pointing to something going on, and then Herb suddenly starts looking like he's about to reveal a secret.
Yep.
You know, he keeps kind of saying, we are, and Vision's like, what? And then, as you said earlier and alluded to, Agnes starts saying, well, it's time to go, and like basically steering the conversation away from where it's going, and Herb walks off. And it's just this very weird moment for Vision where he knows that they know something that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
But they won't tell it. They won't break. So he goes back inside expecting to see his wife and Geraldine. And while this was all going on, Geraldine let it slip that she knew that Wanda's brother Pietro died by Ultron. Mm-hmm. And Wanda looks at her and a tear falls down her eye. And is like, what did you just say? Because they were talking about the fact that Wanda was also a twin.
Yep.
And then Wanda recognizes this logo on the pendant that Geraldine's winning. And she starts kind of menacingly walking towards her. And then we saw the end of that scene that I was just describing. When Vision walks back in, Geraldine's nowhere to be seen. Mm-hmm. And he said, where is she? And he says, oh, she had to hurry off.
She had to hurry home, she says. She made a comment about the home. And I was just like, I wonder if Vision picked that up.
Yeah, had to hurry home.
That's a nice nuance.
Yeah.
I didn't pick that up.
For sure. Actually, I didn't think about that either. Yeah.
I caught something.
Good job.
You did it. You caught it.
Yeah.
She has this very menacing look, and it's the first time in the first 3 episodes that I was like, okay, that was kind of evil. Like, that was evil vibes. Like, villain? Question mark? You were the villain? And then suddenly, and this was so nice, Nick, I'll let you talk about this aspect ratio thing that was going on. You talked about this. Actually, maybe it was both of you did.
Yeah. I mean, I asked you if it happened in the first one. I texted you that I really liked it.
That's right. I was texting both of you.
Yeah.
Well, then, please.
Oh, I just happened to notice. I had never noticed the black bars.
Same.
The vertical black bars.
Really?
I'd never noticed it because it was a period
Okay,
piece.
so that people know what it is. We're talking about the aspect ratio
of the piece.
So traditional sitcoms all the way up through the 70s and 80s.
You should would you be able to do it, like actually put us into it?
Maybe. I'll try to do that right now.
And then widen it out like that.
If I can't, I'll try. I know it's doable. I've never done it before. I'll try to do it right now. But in a way, there's 4:3 aspect ratio, where TVs were more square than they are, unlike today's TVs that are much more rectangle. So traditional TVs now are 16:9. So they changed the aspect ratio from this 4:3, not to just 16:9, but a cinematic, closer like I'm getting better at recognizing my aspect ratios. I think this was 2.35 to 1 is a very popular cinematic aspect ratio. It's just beyond 2 to 1. Yeah. It's very widescreen. You get a lot in the detail. So if you're watching here,
it literally like
the 4:3 slowly fades out.
It was really cool.
And then comes in.
And then the 2.35 to 1 fades in.
I was watching. I was just like, okay, so we are no longer in the fictional
We're not in that world anymore.
Nostalgia world. We are, because we went out through a force field.
Yeah.
And we are back in the MCU.
Right. And just as we didn't say, we see Geraldine get shot out of this giant bubble force field thing, like giant. like Superdome big thing and fly through this field during this transition. She lands in the field. She's still in her 70s clothes.
Yeah.
Meaning that things that go and happen in there can happen. Excuse me. My throat's getting dry from talking.
Like as we're seeing her, I was paying attention to the cars that pulled up around. I was like, that's a new car. That's a new car.
Yeah.
We're
Right.
back in the present.
Yeah, we're back in the present. And she's like covered in this red aura that we've seen Wanda has whenever she uses her magic. So she got sent out aggressively. And
By Wanda.
they drive
presumably.
up. We can only presume sword agents. We've seen the sword logo so many times now. And Geraldine's like out of it, like laying there. And then the episode ends. What?
Yeah.
You know, just thoughts.
Well,
I've talked so
and there's
much.
something I want to go back to that we missed.
Yeah.
So I believe, and I've only watched episode 3 once, so I might be wrong, but I believe that before Wanda gives birth, Vision starts to make a comment about being a little bit suspicious about
right.
like there's some, you know, I forget how he
He's
says
noticing the irregularities of the neighborhood.
Right. And this kind of plays heavily into my theory.
Yeah, I can't believe I missed this.
But then his conversations with Agnes and Herb outside like feed into that
Right.
even more.
Yeah, because that's when he sees Herb cutting through the wall with the tool, and he's like mentioning that, and then he starts thinking about this is
Yeah.
weird. And then they use an opportunity again to essentially in a more modern way rewind and let him try again.
Glitched.
Yep.
It kind of glitched, and we actually, when we were watching this, thought that our TV messed up
Yeah,
when it
me too.
happened.
Yeah.
It was done like that.
But split really quick. I was like, no, it's just like her. No.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a recreation of that moment where she didn't like how things were going in her world, so she changed it, and then suddenly he's being all excited about the babies coming. Complete change of tone and vibe.
I honestly wonder if that's why Disney Plus was freaking out for us last night. So Alex and I have usually been trying to use Disney Plus's sync feature to watch
Like a group
together.
watch. Yeah.
And group watch. So we did a group watch last night, and we had a couple of moments where it was like fast forwarding on my end or fast forwarding or rewinding on Alex's end.
Yeah.
And then that little glitch happened,
And it
I
felt
was
the
like,
same.
And I was like, "Oh, dang it, it's screwing up again." But
Right.
I now wonder, like, were there enough people on Disney Plus last night rewinding because of that moment,
Because they thought
thinking
that
that
it
something
was-
messed
yeah.
up, that it was like screwing up Disney Plus?
It very well could have. I mean, because they're just like having to pull that information down from the cloud again and redo it. Yeah. Very nice moment. So, for time's sake, theories. Where are we going from here? It's wild that this is going to be a long running episode for us, longer than the content we've watched to speculate about. And there's so much to talk about.
That's
Even
okay.
when they spend 2/3 of the episode just building off of the genre of TV that
Sure.
they're in for the week. You know, there's still so much to discuss and Easter eggs and plot points and what ifs. I will say that we didn't get to talk about this as much as I would have liked, but there have been references to the devil
Yes.
several times. The devil in the Marvel Universe is Mephisto. We've talked about Mephisto in our Doctor Doom run. And another pretty pointed one was on that toaster, upside down, was a 666 logo on the Tony Stark toaster.
I didn't see that.
Also, Mephisto has gone by the name Ralph in the comics before, or references a Ralph or a Ralphio, and Agnes referenced her husband being named Ralph. Mephisto very well could be in the details, as they've said.
Yes.
The devil's been mentioned several times. Oh, you devil. The devil's in the details. That's not the only place the devil's at. They keep bringing up the devil, you know? So we haven't seen him yet, except winks, and maybe it's a coincidence, but not many things in these shows are.
Well, and, you know, I guess one of the questions that's out there is, again, how much are they going to do in this show? And I think you're onto something with Mephisto. I don't know if you caught this Easter egg or saw it, but there's a frame in the Loki series trailer
I know what you're talking about.
where there's a shot of stained glass, and if you look closely, it's Mephisto.
Right. Yeah, in passing, like they're in this church. I'm trying to find the comic origins. Okay, yeah. I knew that there was some tie to this. In the comics, Wanda borrowed some of Mephisto's life essence to actually bring her children to life.
Okay.
So they actually have
There you
some
go.
of the life essence of
I was always
the
wondering,
MCU's devil.
because of the issue of Vision we read where Vision kept telling Wanda they're not real. We need to
Right.
talk about how they're not real.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do think, I'll start off with this theory right here. I do think that there's a chance that the children we've seen so far are not real.
Right.
And that it's going to break Wanda's heart so much that she makes a deal with the devil to take some of the life essence from him and put it in her children just so they'll live. Because they do go on to be young Avengers and are still very
which is also
prevalent
really
in the
cool.
comics.
And we know that with other things that are being set up
Yeah.
in the MCU.
Yeah, we've got Kate Bishop,
Right.
leader of the Young Avengers and the West Coast Avengers at one point. We've got Miss Marvel coming on. She's part of a Young Avengers team. Peter Parker could easily be a Young Avenger. Wiccan and Speed could be Young Avenger. There's so much more that they're setting up that would easily be like. And then also, I mentioned earlier that it's important to acknowledge that when Monica Rambeau, I'm going to start calling her Monica because Geraldine's going to change, I know it, was shot out of Wanda's world, she was still in her clothing. Mm-hmm. So things that come out of that world can be as they are. So if we keep going with these decades and the children age accordingly, they can be some actors and leave this series and be able to jump on a show or a film. And we don't have to wait for babies to grow up or do some major time jumps for them to be prominent characters. Yes. Also, just noting, first 2 mutants born in MCU, depending on how and if they retcon Wanda being a mutant or not and Pietro.
I really think they will.
Yeah.
I really hope they will.
I hope they make the argument that the Infinity Stones were the things that awoken their mutant powers.
Yeah, same.
Like, it's not exactly how it works. Well, they kind of did that with Deadpool. Like, they put him under a ton of stress, and that's how he got his powers. Like, they tortured him, basically. So, maybe. Other thoughts?
There's a couple other just little things I want to mention before
Please.
diving right in. So, all of Agnes's mentions about her husband and about Ralph in that first episode when they're talking about the anniversary, there's a little nod just, I think, to Agatha Harkness's character of, the only way I could get my husband to remember our anniversary is if there was a beer named June 2nd. June 2nd is the day the Salem witch trials began.
Yeah, Agatha Harkness is a witch from the Salem witch trials.
There was one other mention she made of Ralph that was so like, once you realize it, like nothing she says is insignificant. Like it all has some kind of deeper meaning if you're like really getting in and doing like an exegesis of this stuff.
Right.
But okay, here's kind of where
Tell us where you're at, baby.
I'm thinking things are. So I almost wonder if the whole laying low, fitting in, we need to fit in, we need to not let people know about our powers is completely a monster of Wanda's making. I think kind of her entire character arc is someone who has like not fit in.
Right.
And I mean, even when she was part of the Avengers, she didn't really fit in. I mean, she was the final domino to fall that kind of caused Civil War and was like at a certain point under house arrest.
Right.
She's been under like a lot of trauma and a lot of stress, but like as Vision has seemingly started to ask questions, she has continued to redirect things toward like, we need to have this normal life. And I almost wonder if this Truman Show sort of thing is even something that Wanda is creating.
Right.
And like she's projecting this TV idealized version of what a normal life is.
Which is super meta.
Super meta.
Yeah.
And then you get so it could be that this whole thing is like Wanda's own universe she's created, or she's been sort of charmed or in a trance or whatever, but she's sort of has the reins under the influence of Agatha. And then I've started to think through the significance of for the children. right? I feel like she was almost steered to have kids, to bring kids into this reality. So
Right.
episode 1, Agatha is like talking to her about seduction techniques.
That's a good point.
And then, and there's a couple things there. Episode 2, like everyone keeps chanting for the children, for the children.
Right.
And it's almost like, you know, they winked
And
at.
there are no children around to be seen.
Right.
Right.
They push the beds together in the very beginning of episode 2.
Right.
You know, Vision says, you know, Wanda, get the light.
Yeah.
And like,
We know what happens.
We all know what happens
Yeah.
there. But it's almost like, was that like a spell or something? Was that like
Right.
a chant, or like they're hoping that children are realized? Is that just planting something in Wanda's subconscious
Right.
for them to have these kids? Because isn't there a story related to Mephisto where like Mephisto through someone else like absorbs those kids to like give himself more power or
I think
something
that
like
might be a thing. Yeah. Like as far as like maybe the deal with the devil is voided and he does something to take back what he gave. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure that something like that has happened.
So, and then in terms of like Sword and where that plays into all of this,
Yeah.
we didn't really talk much about the amnesia.
Right.
But in episode 1, you're like, oh, okay, why don't Wanda and Vision know this stuff? But they clearly know that they have powers.
Right.
They clearly know that they're supposed to try and fit in here. I almost wonder if it's just like Wanda never took the time to get her story straight, and now she can't quickly manufacture lies. I'm not sure.
Right.
But Geraldine definitely seems to have some kind of memory loss.
Right.
And I've almost, like, you made this point to me yesterday. It's like, how stupid. Why would you be wearing a Sword logo as your necklace?
Right.
Like, I've almost wondered if that is like a token to either remind Geraldine that, like, yo, you're with
purpose.
Sword.
What her purpose
Some
is.
Inception-like thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or that and the radio and stuff like that are like little hints being dropped for Wanda. I don't know that Sword could create this kind of reality. I almost wonder if they're
I have
just
a
like
thought.
trying to help Wanda.
I'm wondering.
Or container.
I never thought about this until you started talking. So what if the existence that's happening inside is Wanda driven, and Wanda and Agnes, period. Sword knows it's a problem, so they put up the shield around the outside, and that's them reaching through like, what is going on? They don't know what's happening, so they send in Geraldine as a
Yeah.
which would
Somebody
make
that
sense.
can take care of
That's-
herself.
Nobody knows who they are. Agnes doesn't know who she is, so somehow she made it through, and going through the barrier into Wanda's reality gives everybody amnesia or something.
Which, yes, that barrier seems very tech driven. It
Yeah.
like my wife mentioned it to me. She's like, it looks like when they pass in and out of Wakanda.
Yeah.
It's true.
So I think you're onto something.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the people moving in and out, like, well, the guy in the beekeeper suit had a Sword logo on it. So I'm going to
he
set that one
Found his
aside.
way up from the under or something.
But I've wondered if a lot of the people in the town, they could be actors from Sword. They could be Skrulls.
Yeah.
They could be complete, like some of them, maybe not Agnes, but they could be complete, just like creations of Wanda. I've wondered.
Right.
See that? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like within there, if it is Wanda's reality, most of those people she put in existence.
Yeah.
But the Sword people are the people that they don't trust, that have somehow made their way in, and Agnes knows she doesn't belong or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Sword is just trying to protect the outside world from whatever is going on.
Yeah.
That's definitely in line with what I'm thinking.
We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to give you my final thoughts, and then we'll do a quick wrap up. We'll be right back. And we're back, and I'm going to jump right into kind of piggybacking off of some of the theories that Drew and Nick just had. I don't think this is going to be the case, but I can't ignore the fact that because of the connection with Sword, and knowing that the last time we saw Nick Fury, he was very likely on a spaceship with agents of Sword, and thus a connection with Skrulls is made. And then the fact that we know Secret Invasion is coming, where Skrulls are amongst the Avengers and they don't know who is a Skrull and who's actually an Avenger, that Skrull technology has been seen in the MCU going into somebody's memories and manipulating them to get information. We saw it in Captain Marvel. They had her hung upside down and were literally going in and like replaying this moment where every time she kept turning around, she kept seeing her captain and trying to get some information. They were trying to read something on her badge. And then when she was flying in the ship, they were trying to read something in there. So I think what you guys are talking about is more likely, but there is a scenario that exists where a version of that technology is being used to find out who is doing this to Wanda.
Yeah.
Like maybe Wanda is somewhere on this, in that thing, and they have her hooked up to something and they're trying to find out what's going on. And they may not know that Wanda's doing this and they think somebody's doing it to her. And maybe somebody is doing it to her. Maybe it's Agnes, aka Agatha. Closing thoughts, other Easter eggs before we jump into our trivia?
Easter egg.
Yeah, I have a couple of Easter eggs that
Please.
weren't mentioned, and I can't take the credit for finding these. But so in episode 2, the gum is Big Red, which is it was the code name, like the production name that WandaVision was filmed under.
Very cool.
Which has made me wonder, like, is that even pointing to something?
Mephisto?
Big Red, Mephisto.
Oh.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah. It's a spicy cinnamon gum. Could be.
Also, just this isn't an Easter egg, but the fact that like Vision could get messed up by a stick of gum.
Brought to his knees by some gum.
And so maybe Big Red is a reference to Mephisto, and Mephisto was the one that was really messing him up. Could be.
Who knows?
Because
Yeah.
a piece of gum, surely he has systems in place that could deal with that. But if it's demonic gum,
It was too small probably to notice, but was the pack of gum red? I know the
I don't
stick
remember.
It
wasn't,
wasn't in color yet.
but okay.
yeah.
Okay, here's another one that is probably just an Easter egg.
Right.
There's probably too much to do with all
For
this
sure.
stuff. But Herb is a name that the High Evolutionary went by in the
Really?
Marvel comics.
I don't think I knew that.
Herbert something or other. But the High Evolutionary also like
Yeah.
has a place sort of somewhere in some of these stories
Right.
with
You know, I wondered this little guy right here, his name is Herbie, and has connections definitely to the Fantastic Four, which we know are coming. Again, also, though, his name could just be Herb.
could be.
I wonder if his last name is Ertlinger. Herb Ertlinger's fruit wine. That'd be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm here to keep us grounded.
Yeah. Not often WandaVision.
No.
What else you got?
That's it in terms of
Yeah,
Easter
there's
eggs and
so
things
many.
like that. Yeah.
I think it's important to know that we didn't catch everything. I mean, I'm sure there's something we're forgetting. We have 2 hours to talk about something we could talk about for 2 days. I'm super hyped for this. It's been literally like 18 months since we've had MCU goodness to drool over, and we finally have something that is not only a succession of the universe, but flipping it on its head in the best way possible. Like
Yeah.
it is in every sense of the word new and creative and just juicy and full of life, and I'm here for it. It's freaking awesome. Any closing thoughts? Excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned a whole more about this show sitting here talking to you guys than I did actually watching the show.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I mean, I was watching it. I should have been more trying to take notes and diagnose things. Diagnose, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I just found
Dissect.
myself, there we go. I found myself just watching it, trying to enjoy it because I was like, hey,
Yeah.
it's fun. You know, it's a new show. I've run out of new shows, which is why I'm watching Star Trek, the original series,
Yeah.
which I had a thought. I've been watching so much Star Trek, the original series, which is like 4x3. So everything I've watched for a long
You're
time now
conditioned.
has been like with those bars.
With the 4x3.
So this was nothing new.
Right.
So that's
That's cool though. That it was probably even more jarring with the aspect ratio.
Yeah, I was
change
just
for
when it
you.
moved, I was like,
Yeah.
all I've watched for a couple weeks now has been a square.
That's the second time that we've had an aspect ratio change for a number one Disney Plus series, because in episode 1 of season 2 of The Mandalorian, when he's riding off into the sunset, they did the traditional. Well, first it was in 2:3:5:1, and then they went full IMAX scene for the shots they did in the IMAX, and then they went straight spaghetti western, riding off on his speeder, let the bars collapse on him, and it was just chef's kiss.
Oh, yeah.
So they're definitely the storytellers that Disney Plus is hiring are like, let's pull out all the stops for cinema tricks and just really do some storytelling and like pay homage to our roots, but also bring it in a new, fresh way. So it's super cool. I can't wait for more. Next Friday can't get here fast enough. Moving on, we have some questions for our guest that we traditionally ask everybody that's coming on here new.
It took us a while to get to them for Torrance because I just didn't think about it, but we saved it for that special 50th episode or whatever.
So Drew, take it away.
Sorry, I have to pull them up because I am unprepared.
While you do that, I'm going to break character and go get a drink of water. My throat is dry from all this excited breathing and talking we've been doing. I'll be right back. You guys carry it on.
Okay. So yeah, we're excited for you to be here. It's been a long time in the making. But you know, the first couple episodes, me and Alex asked these questions of each other. The other day we asked them of Torrance because if you're a comic book fan, superhero fan, you've thought about these things. So I'm just going to run down these real quick and you know, you can speak as much or as little on them as you want. So, favorite superhero?
Batman.
That's I respect that for you. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
No, it's good. That's good.
I knew he was going to say that.
I don't know if I knew that.
I won't. This won't take too long, but I used to read a lot.
We have time.
And I used to be, buying comics every week. I'm not doing that quite as much, but there was a time where I was buying basically every Batman issue being published, which is a lot.
Which is a lot because they write a
yeah.
lot of Batman stories concurrently.
There was a moment in time where I was like very in on Batman.
We haven't actually covered a Batman book.
Not yet.
We're thinking of covering The Button, which is Batman and Flash kind of working in the crossover with the Watchmen. So, but yeah,
that smiley face.
Maybe one of these days you want to come back and like give us a legit Batman run or something.
Let's do it.
What about your favorite villain?
I think Thanos.
Okay. I knew you were going to say that a split second before you said it. I don't know why. I was just like, he's going to say that.
I knew his first answer. You knew his second.
There we go.
We're all knowing.
Maybe you guys can tell me what the rest of my answers are.
I'll read you like a book.
What is favorite? This comes from the fact that we're musicians. What is your favorite superhero theme, like theme song or soundtrack or motive or anything like that?
Man,
if you have one.
I've not really thought about that. I think in kind of memories I can piece together right now, my favorite motif is the Steve Rogers motif in the MCU.
Yeah.
When you can hear that Captain America's come, like when he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good moment.
Yeah, like, and as they reuse it, and especially like in Endgame where they're really putting a nice bow on things, it's like, I mean, that's what's so great about these guys as storytellers is it's like almost instant tears in certain moments. So
I mean, I was getting that whenever I was watching those Legends things after the fact.
Yeah.
Like, seeing that moment with Wanda, it was because of the music.
Yeah.
I mean, the story, it's tragic and everything, but it's, so that's cool. I don't actually know if I know it because I've listened to it and I've watched it, but I need to go back and isolate the Steve Rogers theme and see what you're talking about.
It's good. They play on it a lot more as the movies go on.
Okay. What about just a story arc in general of superheroes comic books?
Arc. What do you mean? Like a particular
Like
run,
House of
or like
N was a run, or
I think
Tower of Babel.
I talked about how mine was Death of Superman, just because it was like one of the first things I read issue by issue.
Man, one of my favorites, and I really, other than kind of my going in deep with Batman, I did not read a ton of DC, but a run that I purchased as like a trade paperback was Identity Crisis.
Yeah.
So good.
That's
That
on my
one-
list to read this year. I've never read it.
Yeah, I read that, which caused me to like go to Infinite and like all those crises that are all like together. Like Identity, was that the one coming to terms with Dr. Light, the thing he did?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
God, that took me for a loop. Like,
I think.
I don't think I'd ever read anything that gritty, that dark in a DC book before.
It was super dark.
Ralph Dibny's wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah. And Dr. Light showed up in an episode of The Flash. The
Arrowverse?
the most recent, the Arrowverse shows. And I was just like, oh, that's a different take on her. And I was just thinking, or him, because it was a woman in Arrowverse. And I was just like, I wonder if they're going to
If
go
you
there.
guys ever read that on this show, there's a panel in Identity Crisis that it just captures the beauty of what a comic book can do. That like in a single frame, you can see and feel and like experience the full emotion of a character. And like I feel like that's it's a moment where Ralph Dibny is like in the rain, crying, and like the kind of stretchiness is like part of his powers. You can just see the sorrow in his face, and like the way that he is stretching is like making it's like sorrow elongated. Like
Right.
it's very, very cool.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a good one. So if you had to pick just a favorite movie or TV show from the pantheon of superhero stuff, which would it be?
Can also be animated if it falls into that category.
Yeah, just
Not
anything
have to be.
like superhero that you watched on the screen.
It's probably Infinity War.
I think that's what you said. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that good. And it steps away from the norms of every other film in the genre. And
And there was
actually, in the genre,
there was a, I mean,
they
I feel
don't win.
that. Yeah, walking away from that, I can still remember like how just distraught my wife was as
Yeah.
we were like sitting down, and she was just like,
Yeah,
what?
they
Yeah, it was intense.
the Russo brothers, God bless them, they made us sit there for a year.
Yeah.
And know that
Waiting,
the Avengers lost.
Yeah.
You sit there and you sit in that and you think about what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Bloody brilliant.
Which Alex knows this about me, but for the longest time, I mean, I was really, really hoping that in a movie like Civil War, Captain America was going to die, which happens in the comics. But I don't know, just sort of that like Game of Thrones-ish aspect of like deal with disappointment, because sometimes real life is disappointing and the heroes don't win. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was just
makes
so
that
cool
much
for the
sweeter.
Russo brothers to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very much agree with that one.
Yeah. All right. What is your kryptonite? Like, I think we said that mine was chocolate after 9 o'clock at night. I think you just said
Mine was also,
just food in general.
Cheeseburgers.
Cheeseburgers. Yeah.
I think Tori's was also a food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tempted to say chocolate chip cookies, but
Katie's thinking about making some of those today.
ooh, we're gonna have to stick around.
Yeah.
I want to say like time
Oh yeah. That's deep.
that where like I'm not productive.
Yeah.
Like it's hard for me to spend an entire day doing nothing, which I know is good for you, and I should do that. But like I wake up in the morning feeling like I have to put points on the scoreboard. So I think part of my kryptonite is like self-criticism of how well did I use my time today.
You need to be more lazy, man. Just join us.
I know.
Talk about comic stuff.
Let's
all
do
day.
it. Hey, this is good.
Yeah.
All right. If you could pick any superpower to just have, what would it be?
Like a real one?
Yeah.
A real one. Yeah.
I think I picked teleportation.
Yeah,
Nightcrawler-esque.
I either said flight or power over time. I can't remember which.
Power over time is pretty legit.
Yeah. I mean, it was
Especially going off of what you just said.
Yeah. Just hit pause or
You
hit
can always
fast
pause
forward.
and throw a couple points on the scoreboard.
Yeah. Man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really cool ones to have.
I think flight,
Yeah.
honestly.
Flight, it's just how could it not make things better? You're bogged down or whatever. You're just like, all right, I'm just going to go peace out in the sky for a little while.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want anything like invincibility or
I agree.
what Wolverine or Deadpool have.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would be cool for a while and then end up in a really kind of sad, lonely existence.
Yeah. I made that same point a few episodes ago.
Well, that kind of goes into the next one. What would the worst one to have?
The worst
Worst
superpower.
superpower. We asked this based off of the worst X-Man ever, and Max
So it's kind
Bemis,
of made it into our questions.
the writer of that, Max Bemis, responded to our tweet saying telepathy, because he doesn't want to know what people think about.
Oh, that's a
them.
great point.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you think the
That was
worst
from
would
the
be?
author of that comic.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my earlier point of
A healing factor.
or like invincibility.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think a little healing factor would be really nice.
For
but
sure.
Like,
Yeah. Get
too
over
much
a
of it-
cold.
Yeah.
Not living forever.
Yeah.
For sure. But living forever, I feel like.
Yeah. You gotta. Yeah. How many
Immortality.
times have you seen that trope happen? You're like, yeah, you have to watch everyone you love die while you don't age. Yeah. I feel like I just saw that on an episode of Star Trek that I saw the other day. All right, and the last one. This is a big one. What is your mundane superpower? Like, we've already decided that if we were going to start the mundane Justice League or the mundane Avengers, we have Captain 166 who can pull 166 beats a minute out of nowhere. I am slightly psychic in the fact that about half the time before somebody says the word process, my nose itches.
But only half the time.
Only half the time. It's just like somebody says it and I realize I'm already scratching. I can't remember do you remember what Torrance was?
Yeah, his extremely disruptive snoring.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Extremely disruptive snoring. So
are these things that are true?
that are
Yeah,
true.
they're true.
Yeah.
So you can really do that?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
It all started as an inside joke with some friends. Like when I was doing my jazz masters, there was this guy who said process all the time, and me and the Colby Palmore and Michael Moon were talking about it, and we were just making jokes, and we would make the drinking symbol like every time somebody, it was like a drinking game, say process, but we didn't want to be doing this gesture in school in front of kids, so we were like, all right, we're just going to say touch our nose. So every time, like, I've probably missed 3 or 4 since then, but that was 5-6 years ago. Anytime somebody says process, I touch my nose. We would all touch our nose, and because of that, my nostrils have become slightly psychic. And every now and then somebody says it, and I realize I'm already touching my nose. It
I
itches a
catch
little
them
bit.
all the time when I'll say part of the creative process. It just happened right there. But like
It's like phantom leg vibrations.
Yes.
literally when we're not talking about our powers, I'll just say that and he will scratch his nose there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything like that?
Okay. Yeah, I think I could eat borderline competitively. I think I can eat more in a single sitting than
You have to. The word borderline
Has
needs
to
to
be in
stay
there.
as part of
Yeah.
the power for the mundaneness.
Yeah.
I can pretty much eat more in a single sitting than anyone I know.
Okay. So,
Borderline.
But I don't know that I could kill it in a competition. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
say
so it's just
borderline.
Borderline
competitively.
competitive eating is your power.
and we're rounding ourselves out to be a formidable force.
Yeah. Right. I wouldn't want to take us on.
No.
Is that it?
Yeah, that was all the questions.
Cool.
So welcome. You made the cut.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
Awesome to do this.
this has been, I think, a record for a 2-man episode, the longest one. So if you made it all the way to the end of this
Bravo.
and you're not subscribed, whether watching or listening, stop listening. Yeah. Stop watching. Yeah, cool. Either do it or get off the pot. Drew, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Drew Morris Comp on Twitter, Drew Morris Composer elsewhere. What about you?
You can find me at Alex Wayne Miller. Wayne is Wayne, just like Bruce Wayne, because I am Batman.
You're his favorite.
That's why I'm Batman. I gotta be. Please like me. What about our 2-man accounts, Drew?
2-Man Comic Book at on Twitter, 2-Man Comic Book Club elsewhere with the number 2. Nick, where could they reach you if you're doing anything social media, whatever?
You know, my wife and I are big travelers, and we actually just launched a blog. You guys are some of the first people to hear, you can find us at Away Together,
Very cool.
spelled exactly like they sound, awaytogether.com.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I've seen some of your really cool shots on Instagram too. Can It Travel? Is that what that one is?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's really cool. Great shots of the world. If you like this podcast enough to go on to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, a 5-star review that is, we will read it and give you a shout out on the episode. That also goes a long way to helping us spread our content. Also, word of mouth goes a long way, just telling somebody that you think might enjoy a good story and some good friends talking about it. So that's been it. Until the next time, bye.
See you later. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, guys.